Hello, everyone. This is Asian Anthony, and today we're going to talk about Vietnam. Vietnam is a place I've lived many, many years. I love and hate Vietnam. There are people there in Vietnam that I consider to be family. I've worked in Vietnam. I'm very familiar with almost everything about Vietnam, and we're going to talk about why not only do I think Vietnam is overrated, I don't recommend anyone going there, and if you're going to Southeast Asia, I consider Vietnam to be a hard skip. Do not go. I I don't wish good things for this country. Let's just say that. First off, let me just start with the obvious. Ho Chi Minh. If you're not willing to worship Ho Chi Minh, you shouldn't go to Vietnam. These people view Ho Chi Minh the same way as the North Koreans view Kim Jong Il. You must worship him. You cannot have a negative opinion about him. You cannot read any dissenting opinions about him. Let me give you my opinion about Ho Chi Minh. I think Ho Chi Minh was a terrible person. There's absolutely no reason why the North Vietnamese needed to attack the South Vietnamese. If you look at any map of Vietnam historically, you will see that Southern Vietnam was not a part of what we consider to be Vietnam. There were the Champa people there that were definitely, if you know, you know, they're not considered to be Vietnamese. They were pretty much genocided. And yes, I said it. Yes, they were genocided because you don't see them anymore. They were killed off. And also, Southern Vietnamese had a large Khmer presence. Not 100%, but a large Khmer presence. And historically, they were a part of the Khmer kingdom. And historically, they spent most of their time not a part of a country called Vietnam. They had their own language and culture, and there's absolutely no reason why the Northern Vietnamese had to attack them. Yes, the Northern Vietnamese did attack South Vietnam. The Southern Vietnamese never once claimed that they were going to attack the North. They never once said that there was land in the North that they wanted, that they never tried to steal any resources, etc., etc. Now, before I talk about the Vietnamese War, I'm probably going to make another video about that. But understand this about the Southern Vietnamese. The Southern Vietnamese were more prosperous than the Northern Vietnamese, mostly because of they had a more they had agricultural land that was more ripe for planting. There's a lot of fruit farming in the South, and they were more prosperous than the North. And it is what it is. The Southern Vietnamese didn't do anything to become more prosperous. They just, by happenstance, had more fertile land. Okay. Now, because of this, they were allowed to grow economically a little faster than the North. And you still see that today. Economically, the Southern Vietnamese are more prosperous than the Northern Vietnamese. As a matter of fact, the Southern Vietnamese subsidize the lives of the Northern Vietnamese. Argue with your mama. It is what it is. I lived in Vietnam for many years. Okay, I'm just telling you the truth. The Southern Vietnamese largely wanted to be Catholic. Not everybody, but there was a large Catholic contingent in the South, and they wanted to be democratic and they wanted to be more Western, just like South Korea wanted to be more Western with respect to North Korea. With respect to North Korea, it's exactly the same. Also, in Vietnam, their form of communism is it makes you think that maybe the propaganda that we hear about communism in the West isn't incorrect. And yes, I am aware that in America we are fed propaganda about communism. Communism is not all bad. Communism can be successful. I'm aware of this. But when you live in Vietnam, you see a form of communism that I do not recommend to anybody who is coming from a Western background. They don't have freedom of speech. They don't have freedom of press. They don't have diversity of thought. They don't even have a worldview. They seem to think Vietnam is the center of the world. For example, In Vietnam, the people in Vietnam think that they went to the moon. I'm not joking. The people in Vietnam really think they went to the moon because the government feeds them this information and they do not argue. No one argues about politics in Vietnam because whatever the government says goes. And the government in Vietnam is evil. They don't really care about the people, just like the American government doesn't care, just like the British government doesn't care, Canadian, Indian. Like the governments don't really care about, they care to a certain extent, but the government is not, the community is more important than the government. Let me just say that. And there are a lot of lies in Vietnam that just keep getting repeated and repeated and repeated. The government knows this and they don't do anything because it suits the government in Vietnam. You can say what you want about the American government, but we argue about what's right and what's wrong. In Vietnam, they don't argue about what's right and what's wrong. In Vietnam, they think they are superior to the other Southeast Asians. If you don't believe me, go to your nearest Vietnamese person and ask them about their opinion on the Philippines or a Filipino person. They don't think much of these people, okay? They don't really respect them at all. Same with Thai and Cambodia to a lesser extent. Vietnam people, they're very homogenous. People tend to look the same. They really care about skin whitening, which I don't have a problem with. And they really care about, fitting into this cookie cutter um, phenotype. That's okay. No problem with that at all. And I think this is a big reason why the Vietnamese people are so peaceful. But this means that those who don't fit in that box don't get treated equally. If you're a Vietnamese person and you want to have tattoos, you want to be more Western, or you want to, let's say, not whiten your skin, you you not only will you get passed over in your academic career or your career, you will be passed over socially. The people there just won't respect you the same. Okay, it is an unfortunate truth. Okay, also food standards there. This is a big one for me because the food there is already terrible. They don't know what seasoning is, okay? The banh mi, which is a traditional Vietnamese sandwich, is their staple food. Okay, and also pho. Okay, I'll get to that next. But I have never had a sandwich that was as terrible as the banh mi. I thought the sandwich or the hamburger just that you couldn't mess it up. Oh my God. They give you a banh mi, and I promise you it's like 70% bread. Okay, it is terrible. You bite into it, it's just bread and carrots and like celery. Oh my God. And when you get to street food there, it's always either cold or lukewarm. They don't serve you hot food there. It's disgusting. Their national dish is pho, which is basically just chicken noodle soup, okay? When they make their chicken, they don't fry it. They boil it with no seasoning. It's disgusting, okay? And if you live in northern Vietnamese, and if you live in northern Vietnam, not only do they eat dog there, it's probably the most popular dish, or probably one of the most popular dishes there. Thịt chó is, or dog meat is what we say in English. Thịt chó is what they say in Vietnam. Is everywhere in northern Vietnam. Oh my God. I don't even want to try it. That being said, I have tried it. It's actually not that bad, okay? And they also eat cat. Like it's like a cat soup they make. This I've never tried. But the food there is it makes you want to throw up just looking at it. They eat random birds there. They eat like cranes there. I'm not. I'm not joking. Okay, they will eat. You will eat crane meat there. It is disgusting. Okay, and like I said, I've lived in Vietnam for many years. I have a family in Vietnam. I eat traditional Vietnamese food with a smile on my face, but I always have to pretend like I like it, and I do not like it. Okay. Also, the government there is a very heavy-handed government there. Everyone there is so pro. There's no one there speak. There's no two sides of the fence. There's no two sides of the coin. Everyone there just falls in line. The people there are very robotic. It's very sad because Vietnam is a very peaceful place. The people there are very friendly and warm. But I would not visit Vietnam over any other Southeast Asian country. If you're into having fun, Thailand. If you are into seeing a lot of cultural sites, don't go to Vietnam because remember their culture really started in the 1960s. All they care about is the Vietnamese War, Vietnamese American War. That's all their history. And in case you guys didn't know, the Americans won almost every battle. I actually want to say every battle, and we dominated them. Like I was in the war, and America dominated Vietnam for about 10 years before we left. We were not kicked out. We left mostly due to domestic social pressure, and we left. By the time the fall of Saigon happened, if you know, you know, most of the Americans were out, and we were trying to. The goal was to kick butt as Americans with respect to the Viet Cong, and then hand the reins over to the Southern Vietnamese. And since we won almost every battle, we couldn't fight there for 20, 30 years, especially in the 60s, you know. After we won almost every battle, we slowly started to give the power back over to the Southern Vietnamese. We had trained and fought with them for many years, but the problem was the Southern Vietnamese could not hold off the Northern Vietnamese. It is what it is. The Northern Vietnamese were far more numerous and they were far more motivated because they really did see the land, the what we now call Southern Vietnam. They really seeing that as their land, okay? And I can't blame them for that, but I'm definitely pro Southern Vietnamese. I'm definitely pro freedom. The people in the South wanted freedom. They did not want to be communists till this day. Behind closed doors, you go to Saigon now. Yes, I said Saigon and not Ho Chi Minh City. You go to Saigon now. The people there still calling it Saigon, and behind closed doors, they still wish that they had American style freedom, which they do not have. I am not speaking about everybody, but I'm speaking about a significant portion of the Southern Vietnamese population, and also pretty much 100% of the American Vietnamese population. But let's continue. The traffic there. Now, this sounds like almost nothing and insignificant, but the traffic there is so bad that you are far more likely to be killed in the streets of Vietnam than you are to be shot or beaten or attacked in America. People see America as this dangerous place, and they see the streets as not suitable for, the normal everyday person. Not only is this not true, Vietnam is far more dangerous than anything you're going to see in Vietnam. I never once worried about being shot in America. Never. Grew up in Los Angeles, born in Indianapolis, Indiana. Realistically, being shot or killed was never really a concern of mine. Never. But being killed, ran over, maimed, mangled, or permanently disabled was a everyday threat in Vietnam. Facts. And if you live in Vietnam, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Another problem with Vietnam is the brainwashing. If you are American or you're a foreigner, almost every foreigner there suffers from sunk cost fallacy. As in, they've invested so much into moving to Vietnam and they lived in Vietnam for so much that they are not likely to leave Vietnam. They're not likely to speak against Vietnam. Not only is their freedom at stake, they have brought their families there. They kind of live their life there. They're not likely to tell you the truth about Vietnam. I'm going to tell you the truth about Vietnam. Lived there for many years, worked there for many years. I would never go back. I would never visit, and I would never recommend anyone else visit. I'm going to make more videos about Vietnam and the other Southeast Asian countries, but today this is it because we are past my time of 10 minutes, and